Let's begin. Rain hammered the cracked windshield, each drop a tiny fist against the glass. Inside the rusted sedan, Tom curled tighter under a threadbare blanket, his breath fogging in the cold. The parking lot was a gray blur, streetlights smearing like ghosts. His stomach growled, a low, aching reminder of the half-eaten burger he'd scavenged hours ago. 3 months. 3 months living in this car. Every night a battle against the chill and the shame. A sharp rap on the window jolted him upright. Heart pounding, he squinted through the rain. A small figure stood there. A girl no older than 8, her pink raincoat gleaming under the streetlight. Her eyes, wide and unblinking, locked onto his. "Mister," she said, voice muffled but clear. "Why are you sleeping out here?" Tom froze. His mouth went dry. He cracked the window just an inch. "I'm fine, kid." "Go home." She didn't move. Her tiny hand pressed against the glass, leaving a smudge. "You don't look fine. You look cold." He wanted to snap, to tell her to leave, but her gaze held him, curious, not judging. The rain slowed to a drizzle, and she tilted her head. "My mom makes soup. Real good soup. Want some?" Tom's chest tightened. Soup, warmth, a kid offering him, what, pity? He shook his head, but she was already backing away, pointing down the street. "It's the yellow house. Come when you're ready." Then she was gone, her raincoat a fading splash of color in the dark. He sat there, hands trembling. The car smelled of mildew and regret. He'd lost his job, his apartment, his pride. Nobody knew. Nobody cared. But this girl, her words echoed, soft but persistent. Soup, a yellow house. Why had she stopped? Why him? He glanced at the dashboard clock. 17 p.m. His fingers hovered over the keys in the ignition. He could drive away, find another lot, another shadow to hide in. But the ache in his gut wasn't just hunger. It was something heavier, something that made him pull the blanket aside and step into the drizzle. The street was quiet, houses glowing faintly through curtains. The yellow house stood out, its porch light a warm beacon. He stopped at the edge of the lawn, heart racing. What was he doing? A grown man, unshaven, reeking of desperation, walking toward a stranger's door because a kid said so? He turned to leave, but the door creaked open. The girl stood there, grinning. "You came," she called, waving him in. Tom's throat closed. He took a step forward, then another. The porch steps groaned under his weight. Inside, the air smelled of tomatoes and herbs. A woman appeared, mid-30s, apron dusted with flour, eyes sharp but not unkind. "You must be the man from the car," she said, voice steady. "I'm Lena, this is Sophie." "Come in." He hesitated. The warmth of the house reached out, pulling at him. Sophie tugged his sleeve. "It's okay, mister. You're safe here, safe." The word hit like a punch. He stepped inside. The kitchen was alive with small sounds. The hiss of a kettle, the clink of a spoon against a bowl. Tom stood just inside the door, his wet boots leaving puddles on the hardwood. Lena set a steaming bowl of soup in front of him, the aroma of tomatoes and basil curling into his senses. He gripped the chair, afraid to sit, afraid this was a dream that would shatter. "Eat," Lena said, her voice firm but warm. "You look like you haven't had a proper meal in weeks." Sophie slid into the chair across from him, her chin propped on her hands. "It's my favorite. Mom puts carrots in it." "You like carrots?" Tom's lips twitched, almost a smile. "Yeah, I like carrots." His voice cracked, rusty from disuse. He sat, the chair creaking, and lifted the spoon. The first sip burned his tongue, but it was heaven. Warm, rich, real. He ate slowly, savoring every bite, while Sophie chattered about school, her dog, the rain. Lena watched him, her expression unreadable. "How long you been out there?" she asked, wiping her hands on her apron. Tom's spoon paused. He stared into the soup, the question sinking into him like a stone. "Few months," he muttered. "Lost my job, then everything else." She nodded, no pity in her eyes, just understanding. "Happens to a lot of folks." "Doesn't make you less?" His throat tightened again. He wanted to believe her, but the weight of his failures pressed down. The car, the cold, the night spent wondering if this was all his life would be. He glanced at Sophie, who was drawing circles on the table with her finger. Why were they doing this? What did they want? You don't have to tell us anything, Lena said, as if reading his mind. But you're welcome here tonight, Sophie piped up. You can meet Rusty. He's our dog. He's real fluffy. Tom's chest ached. He hadn't been around people like this in months, people who didn't look through him. He finished the soup, the warmth spreading through him, but unease lingered. Kindness like this. It didn't come free, did it? Lena stood clearing the table. There's a guest room upstairs. Clean sheets, hot shower. You're welcome to it, he shook his head. I don't have money to. It's not about money, she cut in, her voice sharp now. It's about being human. Sophie hopped off her chair, tugging his arm. Come see the room. It's got a big window. He followed, dazed, up a narrow staircase. The guest room was small but clean, with a quilted bed and a window overlooking the rainy street. His car sat under the streetlight, a dark shape in the distance. It felt like another life. Stay, Sophie said, her voice soft. Please. He looked at her, then at Lena, who stood in the doorway, arms crossed. One night, he said, barely a whisper. Lena nodded. One night. As Sophie skipped downstairs, Tom stood alone in the room, the weight of their kindness pressing against the walls of his doubt. Something was coming, something he wasn't ready for. He could feel it. The guest room smelled of lavender and old wood. Tom stood by the window, staring at his car through the rain-streaked glass. The shower had been hot, the towel soft, but he felt exposed like an intruder in someone else's story. He sat on the edge of the bed, the quilt rough under his fingers. Sleep should have come easy, but his mind churned. Why were they doing this? Nobody gave without expecting. A soft knock broke his thoughts. Lena stood in the doorway, holding a mug of tea. Can't sleep? She asked, her voice low, like she didn't want to wake the house. He shook his head. Not used to. This. He gestured vaguely at the room, the warmth, the quiet. She handed him the mug, the steam carrying a hint of chamomile. Sophie's got a knack for spotting people who need help, she said. She saw you last week, you know. Kept asking about the man in the car. Tom's grip tightened on the mug. She shouldn't be out there. It's not safe. Lena's eyes flickered, a shadow crossing her face. She's got a big heart. Too big sometimes. She sat in the armchair across from him, her hands folded. Her dad. He was like you for a while, living out of his truck. Lost everything after the factory closed. Tom's breath caught. What happened to him? Her lips pressed thin. He didn't make it. Drank too much one night and... She trailed off, staring at the floor. Sophie was 4. She doesn't remember much, but she feels it. Thinks she can save everyone? The words landed heavy. Tom set the mug down untouched. I'm not her dad. I'm not. Worth saving? Lena's gaze snapped to his. Don't say that. Not in my house. Her voice was fierce, but her eyes softened. You're here. That's enough for now. He looked away, shame burning his chest. The rain tapped the window, a steady rhythm. Downstairs, a floorboard creaked. His eyes darted to the door. That's Sophie. Lena frowned, standing. She's supposed to be in bed. She stepped into the hall, her voice sharp. Sophie, you up? No answer. Tom's pulse quickened. He followed her downstairs, the house too quiet now. The kitchen was empty, the back door slightly ajar. Rain blew in, pooling on the floor. Lena's face paled. Sophie. They rushed outside, the cold biting through Tom's borrowed sweater. The backyard was dark, the swing set swaying in the wind. Sophie. Lena called again, her voice cracking. A faint giggle came from the alley beyond the fence. Tom's stomach dropped. He bolted toward the sound, Lena behind him. In the alley, Sophie stood under a streetlight, her raincoat glowing. She was talking to someone, a man, tall, shadowed, his voice low and rough. Sophie, get back! Lena shouted, grabbing her daughter's arm. The man stepped into the light, his face gaunt, eyes hollow. "Didn't mean no harm," he muttered, hands raised. "Just saw the kid." Tom's fists clenched. He knew that look. Desperation, hunger. The same one he saw in his own reflection. But something about the man's voice sent a chill down his spine. This wasn't over. The alley smelled of wet asphalt and rotting leaves. Tom stood between Lena and the stranger, his heart hammering. Sophie clung to her mother's side, her eyes wide but unafraid. The man's hands were still raised, his coat tattered, his face a map of hard years. "I wasn't gonna hurt her," he said, voice rough as gravel. "She just started talking to me." Lena pulled Sophie closer, her voice steel. "You don't talk to my daughter. You don't come near my house." The man's eyes darted to Tom, then back to Lena. "Ain't looking for trouble. Just hungry." His voice broke on the last word, and Tom felt it. A pang of recognition. He'd been that man, begging for scraps, invisible to the world. "Mom, he's like the car man," Sophie whispered, pointing at Tom. "He needs soup too." Lena's jaw tightened. "Not now, Sophie." She looked at Tom, her eyes searching. "You know him?" Tom shook his head, but the man's gaze lingered like he saw something in Tom he recognized too. "Name's Ray," the man said, stepping back. "I'll go." Didn't mean to scare nobody. But Tom saw it. The way Ray's hand twitched, the way his eyes flicked to the open back door. Something wasn't right. "Wait," Tom said, stepping forward. "You got a place to go?" Ray hesitated, his shoulders slumping. "Not really. Been moving around," Lena's voice cut through. "We can't take in every stray, Tom." Her words were sharp, but her eyes held fear, not anger. Sophie tugged her mother's sleeve. "But Mom, you said helping people is what we do." Lena knelt, her voice softening. "Baby, some people, you can't help them all." She stood facing Ray. "There's a shelter 2 blocks over. They've got food, beds. Go there?" Ray nodded, but his eyes didn't leave Tom. "You got lucky," he muttered, almost too low to hear. Then he turned, disappearing into the dark. Tom's skin prickled. Lucky. The word felt like a warning. He followed Lena and Sophie back inside, locking the door behind them. The kitchen felt smaller now, the warmth tainted. Lena busied herself cleaning the counter, her hands shaking. "That man, he's been around before," she said almost to herself. "Hanging near the park, watching." Tom's stomach twisted. "You think he's dangerous?" She didn't answer right away. "I don't know. But Sophie's too trusting. Always has been." Sophie, sitting at the table, looked up. "He was sad, Mom, like the car man." Tom flinched. Car man. That's what he was to her. A project? A stray? He wanted to leave, to run back to his car, but the look in Sophie's eyes stopped him. She wasn't wrong. He was sad, broken, but Ray was something else. "I'll stay up," Tom said, surprising himself. "Keep an eye out." Lena studied him, then nodded. "Okay, but you sleep tomorrow. No arguments." As she took Sophie upstairs, Tom sat by the window, the rain a soft drumbeat. Ray's words echoed. "You got lucky." He didn't feel lucky. He felt like a storm was coming, and he was standing right in its path. The house settled into silence, the rain a steady whisper outside. Tom sat by the living room window, the street light casting long shadows across the floor. His eyes burned from exhaustion, but he couldn't close them. Ray's face, those hollow eyes, that twitchy hand, kept flashing in his mind. He'd seen men like that before, in the lots and alleys he'd called home. Men who'd lost more than their pride, who carried something darker. The clock ticked past 2 a.m. The yellow house felt like a bubble, fragile and temporary. Tom's fingers traced the armrest, the fabric worn but soft. He didn't belong here, in this warmth, this kindness. Yet here he was, watching over a family that wasn't his. A faint scrape came from the backyard. Tom stiffened, his breath catching. He crept to the kitchen, peering through the window. The yard was dark. The swing set a skeletal outline. Nothing moved, but the sound came again. Metal on metal, low and deliberate. He grabbed a flashlight from the counter, its beam cutting through the gloom. The back door was still locked, but the latch felt loose, like someone had tampered with it. His pulse roared. Ray, it had to be. He stepped outside, the cold biting his skin. The beam swept the yard, catching a glint near the fence. Crowbar, half hidden in the grass. His stomach dropped. He spun, scanning the shadows, when a figure lurched from the alley. Ray, his face twisted, eyes wild. "Thought you'd be gone," Ray hissed, stepping closer. "This ain't your place." Tom's grip tightened on the flashlight. "Get out of here, Ray, now." Ray laughed, a low, broken sound. "You don't get it. I've been watching this house. That woman, that kid, they're too soft, easy." His hand slipped into his coat, pulling out a knife, its blade catching the light. Tom's heart seized. He wasn't a fighter, hadn't been in years. But Sophie's voice echoed in his head. "You're safe here." He lunged, swinging the flashlight. It cracked against Ray's wrist, the knife clattering to the ground. Ray snarled, tackling him into the mud. Fists flew, pain exploding in Tom's jaw. The back door slammed open. Lena stood there, a baseball bat in her hands. "Get off him!" she roared, swinging. Ray scrambled back, cursing, and bolted into the dark. Tom lay panting, mud soaking his clothes. Lena dropped the bat, kneeling beside him. "You okay?" Her voice shook, her hands checking him for wounds. He nodded, wincing. "Yeah, he's gone." Inside, Sophie stood at the top of the stairs, eyes wide. "Mom, is the carman okay?" Lena pulled her close. "He's fine, baby. He's a good man." Tom's chest ached, not from the fight, but from her words. He stood shaky as Lena locked the door. "You didn't have to do that," she said softly. "But I'm glad you did." He met her eyes, then Sophie's. For the first time in months, he didn't feel invisible. "I'm staying," he said, voice steady. "Not just tonight. I'll help." "Whatever you need," Lena smiled, small but real. "We'll figure it out together." The rain slowed and the house felt warm again. Tom wasn't fixed, but he was here, and that was enough. Thanks for watching.